This is the weekly roundup on the EAC Cambodia channel, your look back at the week that was in the Kingdom of Wonder. A very good evening to you. I'm Andrew Barnes-Roberts, and we begin on Monday, the 12th of July. Phnom Penh has released official guidelines for the home-based care and treatment of patients with mild COVID-19, including children. There are currently 915 such patients in the capital. Measures governing their treatment were issued at a media briefing on Monday morning at the offices of the Phnom Penh municipality. EAC news reporter Reo Soko was there.
Secretary of State of the Ministry of Health, Mr. Ngo Kang, says local authorities will check the location of each patient prior to putting them in home care, including children. He says it is important that there is a proper isolation room for that person. A sign that there is a COVID-19 patient undergoing treatment will also be posted at their location. Mr. Kang has also highlighted that while one member of the family is undergoing home treatment, other members of the household are not allowed to go out. He says this should ensure that COVID-19 will not spread further in the community, such as the local market. The measures came just as Phnom Penh's Kandal market was closed after COVID-19 cases were recorded in the area. This has left vendors fearful that their livelihoods as well as their health are at risk.
They closed the market this morning. I am very worried about this lockdown during this time too. I have no choice but to protect myself.
With regards to home treatment, Phnom Penh Deputy Governor Mr. Kao Chai says that COVID-19 patients must be monitored closely. He says the guidelines must be taken seriously or violators will face legal action.
After implementing the home treatment for asymptomatic patients of COVID-19 in Phnom Penh, Cambodia's health authorities are eyeing Kandal next. It will be followed by other provinces that have the highest number of COVID-19 cases to avoid overwhelming hospitals. But as of now, the focus is the capital. People are urged to follow Phnom Penh administration's measures and guidelines to avoid the further spread of COVID-19 disease. Rhea Soko, EAC News, Phnom Penh.
Business groups in Cambodia have been waiting for the country's economy to slowly reopen after being shut for more than a year due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And they're hoping for a full reopening as soon as it's feasible. Not only that, but they'd like to see Phnom Penh eventually becoming Cambodia's first travel bubble, allowing fully vaccinated business people and tourists in. Cambodian Investment Management Holdings says business groups and industry associations are making recommendations such as these to the royal government. Its group chief executive officer, Mr. Anthony Galliano, sat down with EAC news reporter Rhea Soko.
Baby steps is what they're calling it. First, allow fully vaccinated returning Cambodian residents, citizens, and foreigners to be able to quarantine at home. Group Chief Executive Officer of Cambodian Investment Management Holdings, Mr. Anthony Galliano, says the $2,000 deposit currently required for foreigners entering the country, in addition to the 2-week quarantine, is pushing investors and business people away. He says that by removing the $2,000 and changing to home quarantine, the country's economy, particularly the tourism and hospitality sectors, would slowly bounce back.
We have seen decimation in the industry. It's the amount of revenue lost in some cases has been 100% in hotels and guest houses and maybe 60% or more in restaurants. And this has been it's an important part of the country. Tourism is 25% of the country's GDP. It was, it's by far nothing now. It's almost it's disappearing down to the single digits. We're losing a lot of hotels and restaurants, travel agencies that won't come back for years. And that's already done.
He says the next step in the recommendations is to open up borders for international business travel. He emphasizes that the quarantine period for this should be in line with the recommendations of medical doctors, ranging from 3 days to 2 weeks, as long as those travelers have a vaccination passport.
There's a lot of projects in Sihanoukville we'd like to see back started up in terms of the economy. Sihanoukville is going to be a huge national asset for the future for Cambodia as the casino capital of Southeast Asia. And that's going to be huge for the national coffers. It's going to be huge for the national treasury. So we'd like to see some of those projects finished, some of the projects, real estate that are unfinished, bringing those investors back in, bringing those buyers back in, bringing that foreign investment back in when it's safe and the right time.
Along with the adjustment of the entry requirements, Mr. Galliano says there should be an increase in penalties for quarantine violators to avoid any more community outbreaks.
The royal government's vaccination campaign in Phnom Penh has left over 75% of the capital's population fully inoculated. People are already eager to get out and travel, while business groups are hoping that this will be the start of slowly restoring the economy that's been hit hard by the pandemic. Rhea Soko, EAC News, Phnom Penh.
The Ministry of Health and the Phnom Penh Capital Administration have launched a crackdown on high-risk businesses that are operating illegally. Phnom Penh Deputy Governor Mr. Kyut Che says officials have received information about some businesses that have reopened despite the administrative measures ordering their closure until at least the 23rd of July. He says just last week, authorities closed a karaoke club in Sen Sok. The capital administration is now calling on everyone to cooperate, otherwise another lockdown could be enforced. EAC news reporter Rhea Soko has more.
Apart from karaoke clubs, there are also reports about gyms continuing to operate despite the stern warnings from the Health Ministry and World Health Organization about the further spread of COVID-19. Phnom Penh Deputy Governor Mr. Kyut Che says these business owners are not helping and are in fact making the 20 February community outbreak even more difficult to end.
Business owners who secretly open their karaoke shops and other entertainment clubs are clearly in violation of administrative measures. If they get apprehended, they will not be allowed to open their business ever again. The business owner's name will be blacklisted from doing any further business in the country. The reopening of karaoke clubs is considered high risk for spreading COVID-19 and shall be submitted to the court for legal action.
He has urged people to cooperate with the Ministry of Health's guidelines. He says everyone needs to take them seriously. Phnom Penh Governor Mr. Kong Sreng has repeatedly warning in recent weeks that if not, another lockdown for the capital will be ordered.
City Hall is warning that the police will clamp down high-risk businesses that have reopened illegally. In recent weeks, some gyms, KTVs, and other entertainment venues have started operating again in clear violation of the current administrative measures. Members of the public are being asked to report these businesses to the police. Business owners found to be operating illegally face the prospect of permanently blacklisted. Rhea Soko, EAC News, Phnom Penh.
The royal government has launched the second phase of its cash support program for those hardest hit by the community outbreak of COVID-19 and its associated lockdowns. The Ministry of Economy and Finance is making another round of once-off payments that can be collected at wing agents nationwide. The focus is on deprived households in Phnom Penh, Tak Mau in Kandal, and Preah Sihanouk province. Drivers, construction workers, street vendors, garbage collectors, and others whose work was suspended in recent weeks will receive between $39 and $78, depending on the size of their family. Lockdown-affected factory workers each receive a $40 subsidy. The Finance Ministry says those with infected family members, both inside and outside lockdown areas, will receive similar amounts. Families of those who have died of COVID-19 each receive $75, in addition to the 5-month cash support previously announced to help them cover utility bills. The second phase of government's cash relief program was announced earlier this month as part of the 9th round of interventions it was making to support the individuals and business sectors worst hit by the pandemic in the kingdom. Amid increasing concerns about just how effective Sinovac and Sinopharm are, the Health Ministry has increased the dose interval from 14 to 21 days. The additional 7-day gap between shots is believed to increase Sinovac's efficacy from just above 50% to 79%. It's a similar improvement for Sinopharm. Just what this means for Phnom Penh, where the vast majority of residents have already been vaccinated at the minimum recommended interval of 14 days, no one is saying. But recent events in the capital could well be behind the Health Ministry's decision. We have a fully vaccinated Phnom Penh. 99.2% of its residents have had at least one shot. Over 75% have had two. That should mean the capital has achieved herd immunity, but it hasn't. Markets are being closed every week, just this week in Rasai Kiau and Riverside. Almost every day there are alerts about COVID-19 positive people having visited banks and shops. City Hall concedes there are still between 200 and 300 new cases a day. And now we can understand why. 14 days between doses of Sinopharm and Sinovac are the absolute recommended minimum by the World Health Organization and the vaccine manufacturers themselves. Research data about the Chinese vaccines varies wildly, but mass studies in Brazil and Chile both came to similar conclusions earlier this year. The University of Chile and Brazil's state-owned Butantan Institute found that 14 days between shots of Sinovac resulted in just over 50% protection, the minimum standard for a vaccine as set by the WHO. Increasing the time between doses to 21 days lifted that rate to somewhere between 65 and 79%, with 100% protection against hospitalization and death. The royal government says it is 51% of the way to reaching its target of vaccinating 10 million adults by the third quarter. But those 5.1 million people have had only one shot. In terms of fully vaccinated people, that's just over 39%. And all of those people have had dose intervals of 14 days. The Health Ministry says all future administrations of Chinese vaccines will now be given at 21-day intervals, and the instruction is effective immediately. But it means the capital will remain vulnerable to sporadic outbreaks as long as people are not observing the preventative measures. Herd immunity will not be enjoyed in Phnom Penh until herd immunity has been achieved across the entire country. The royal government, along with international NGOs and UNICEF, has launched an action plan to prevent the online sexual exploitation of children in the kingdom. The plan was unveiled at a virtual event on Wednesday morning. Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of the Interior, Mr. Sa Keng, says online sexual exploitation of minors has become an emerging challenge during the pandemic. He's now calling on relevant authorities and civil society to cooperate in preventing it. EAC news reporter Reo Soko has the story.
The international NGO Thea des Om Netherlands has reported that online child protection in Cambodia is a major challenge. Its country representative, Ms. Zui de Mello, says that many Cambodian children under the age of 13 are using social media more than ever before.
Since the first COVID outbreak 1.5 years ago now, the time spent online by Cambodian children has increased even more. Online and distance learning has been a great alternative for some children to continue their education in very difficult times. But the evidence shows that most of the children remain largely unsupervised by their caregivers or by another adult who have very little awareness of the risks of being active online.
The Action Plan to Prevent and Respond to Online Child Sexual Exploitation 2021 to 2025 contains the basic rights of children and strategic goals to protect them online. UNICEF Cambodia Deputy Representative Mr. Hala Abdel Wahab says that school closures due to the pandemic have increased the access children have to the internet, often without proper supervision. He says this increases the risks of children's sexual exploitation in the forms of pictures and videos. Interior Minister Mr. Sa Keng has called for more awareness for parents and guardians about the dangers children are exposed to online. He has also urged the Ministry of Posts and Telecommunications to strictly regulate internet service providers and develop child protection policies responsive to image content and pornographic material. Mr. Keng has also encouraged the Ministry of Social Affairs, Veterans, and Youth Rehabilitation to continue promoting social services, especially counseling to vulnerable children about online crimes. Rhea Soko, EAC News.
ASEAN has been urged to take strong action against Myanmar. U.S. Secretary of State Mr. Antony Blinken made the call during Wednesday's special ASEAN-U.S. Foreign Ministers meeting hosted virtually by Laos. Cambodia's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Prak Sokhonn, was also in attendance.
The U.S. Secretary of State expressed deep concerns about the military coup in Myanmar. Mr. Antony Blinken says he supports ASEAN's 5-point consensus, but those 5 points need action, namely, end the violence, initiate political dialogue, appoint a special envoy to facilitate mediation, provide humanitarian assistance, and send a delegation to the country to meet with its leaders. Malaysia's Foreign Minister, Mr. Hisamuddin Hussein, welcomed Blinken's support, telling the meeting that he hoped it signaled a refreshed commitment to U.S. multilateral cooperation in the region. He says this is the only way forward to ensure stability, peace, prosperity, and security within Southeast Asia. Cambodia's Foreign Minister, Mr. Prak Sokhonn, echoed those sentiments, emphasizing the importance of continued efforts to promote and protect human rights and democracy, while pointing out the need to recognize that no one size fits all. On Myanmar, he says the country's stability is indispensable to that of the region as well as to the ASEAN community building.
EAC News fully supports the Royal Government of Cambodia's preventative and administrative measures against COVID-19. But we need you to play your part in helping bring the 20 February community transmission event to an end. Wash your hands regularly, sanitize wherever possible. Keep an eye on your body temperature. Use the Stop COVID QR code and maintain a safe social distance. But above all, please, 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 wear a mask. Only together can we beat COVID-19. EARTS Cambodia's audience is growing. Our YouTube channel now has 150,000 verified subscribers. To mark the milestone, we've received the Silver Creator Award from YouTube, given to channels with over 100,000 subscribers. YouTube CEO Susan Wojcicki says the award celebrates EARTS Cambodia's hard work and incredible achievement. She says not only has EARTS Cambodia brought a unique voice and style to the world, but has also created valuable connections and built a community along the way. The next milestone we're going for is 1 million subscribers, and we'd really like that Gold Creator Award. So if you're not already a subscriber, head to www.youtube.com/EARTS Cambodia. Subscribers get all the latest breaking news and updates from Cambodia in English. We'll see you there. If it's happening and you need to know about it, you'll get it all right here. EAC News brings you updates and breaking news in English across all of EARTS Cambodia's platforms and channels. YouTube, Facebook, Telegram, Twitter, and our website, www.eartscambodia.com. Join me, Andrew Barnes-Roberts, and the rest of the EAC News team every day on your favorite channels. EAC News, Cambodia made clear. Cambodia has reached the grimmest of milestones in its fight against COVID-19. The kingdom's total number of fatalities has breached 1,000, with 39 new deaths being reported overnight. The total death toll now stands at 1,025. EAC News reporter Rayo Soko.
It was in the early hours of Saturday, the 20th of February, when 4 Chinese nationals bribed their way out of quarantine at Soka Hotel. They went on to visit several upmarket condos in Kopik before ending their night on the town at a nightclub. 2 of them had COVID-19. One of them had the Alpha or UK variant. We're now almost exactly 5 months later, and it's hard to imagine a worse situation. On the 19th of February, Cambodia had been managing to contain COVID-19 successfully. The country had reported barely 400 cases and 0 deaths. As of Thursday, July 15, the Ministry of Health says there are now 64,611 COVID-19 cases, with 996 more being reported overnight. 167 of those are imported cases. 813 patients have been discharged since Wednesday, taking the total number of successful treatments to 56,178. But the numbers are hard to stomach when you consider how well Cambodia had been doing.
The February 20 community transmission events shows no signs of slowing down. If Cambodia has to start reducing its numbers, everyone has to play their part and observe the 3 main preventive measures: wash your hands, wear a mask, and maintain a safe social distance. Rhea Soko, EAC News, Phnom Penh.
Foreigners living in Siem Reap are being invited to register for vaccinations. The province will begin its inoculations drive next Tuesday. In line with Wednesday's announcement from the Health Ministry, there will be a 21-day interval between doses of Chinese vaccines. If you're living in Siem Reap and haven't yet submitted a request for vaccination, you can do so at the Siem Reap Municipal Administration. There is some paperwork you'll need, though. A passport with a visa valid until at least the end of July. If your visa has expired, you'll need an extension. And if you're on any chronic medication, you'll need to show a prescription or a health certificate. Vaccines for foreigners will be administered at the Siem Reap Referral Hospital. The provincial administration has emphasized that vaccination is on a voluntary basis and is free of charge. Well, let's take a look now at news making headlines around the world. South Africa's worst violence in decades shows no signs of abating. At least 72 people have been killed in riots and looting rampages across the country, the worst of it in the coastal city of Durban. The unrest was sparked by the jailing of former President Jacob Zuma on contempt of court charges, but has led to an explosion of frustration at the state the country is in 27 years after the end of apartheid. The Zuma Foundation says the violence will not end until he's released. 5,000 troops have been mobilized in an effort to contain the unrest, which has also spread to the financial capital Johannesburg, where a 15-year-old boy was killed by a stray bullet on Wednesday. Authorities in Australia have extended Sydney's lockdown by at least another 14 days. 3 weeks of restrictions have failed to reduce the number of COVID-19 infections. 97 new locally transmitted cases were reported on Wednesday, an increase from the day before. The governor of New South Wales says the lockdown will only be lifted when the number of newly reported community cases is close to 0. The shutdown has already been extended twice. Total infections since the first case was detected in mid-June now stand at just under 900. 2 deaths have also been reported in recent weeks, the first COVID deaths in Australia since last year. And an emotional reunion for a Chinese man and his son 24 years after his kidnapping. His father had spent those years zigzagging across China on his motorbike looking for him. Police eventually tracked down a man fitting the son's description in central Henan province back in June, but needed to wait for DNA tests to confirm his identity. Guo Jinzhen, who is now a 26-year-old teacher, was kidnapped at the age of 2 back in 1997 while playing outside his home. He was then sold to another family. State broadcaster CCTV showed footage of the emotional reunion at a police station. 2 people have been arrested for the abduction. Parents, get ready. Prime Minister Hun Sen has confirmed that Cambodia will vaccinate children aged between 12 and 17. In an announcement on Friday morning, the Prime Minister said the country will need an additional 4 million doses of COVID-19 vaccine to inoculate 2 million children in that age group. He emphasized that vaccinating children is not just about building herd immunity, but also to prepare for the reopening of schools. EAC News reporter Reo Soko has the story.
Children are now eager to go back to school. Their parents are perhaps even more so. They say learning is just not the same online, but they could soon be out of the house and back in class. The Prime Minister approving vaccines for those aged between 12 and 17.
ខ្ញុំសូមយកឱកាសនេះអំពាវនាវចំពោះមាតាបិតាអាណាព្យាបាលរបស់កុមារនិងយុវវ័យត្រៀមខ្លួនដើម្បីនាំកូននាំចៅទៅចាក់វ៉ាក់សាំងនៅពេលវេលាដែលបានមកដល់យើងចង់ឲ្យមានភាពស៊ាំក្នុងសង្គមដើម្បីឈានទៅដល់ការបើកឡើងវិញនៅសង្គមសេដ្ឋកិច្ចពិសេសគឺសាលារៀនដែលយើងបានផ្អាកបានបិទសាលាហើយឲ្យរៀនតាមពីចម្ងាយតាមរយៈប្រព័ន្ធអនឡាញ
EAC News took to the streets of Phnom Penh to ask children how they felt about getting vaccinated.
Nowadays, I study at grade 10 at Braidliep High School. I'm so happy after hearing about the child vaccination, and it makes me feel safer than before. Also, it makes me feel less nervous about the spreading of this disease. And I would like to thank the government for issuing this new measure. I am ready for the vaccination.
I'm so very happy after hearing this news because after I get the vaccination, I wish we can all go to school again. I would like to thank the government for preparing the child vaccination.
The Prime Minister has stressed that vaccinations will be voluntary. Phnom Penh and Kandal will be first, followed by Priya Sihanouk. Still to be decided exactly when vaccinations for children will begin. As of Thursday, 54.17% of the 10 million adults target have received 1 dose of vaccine. Just over 4 million adults have been fully vaccinated. Rhea Soko, EAC News.
The head of Cambodia's permanent mission to the UN in Geneva has highlighted the progress the country has made in terms of human rights, despite the effects of COVID-19. Mr. An Sokun was speaking at the 47th session of the Human Rights Council. He emphasized Cambodia's vaccination program, distance learning during the prolonged school closure, as well as freedom of opinion and expression. EAC News reporter Reo Soko has the story.
Mr. An Sokun says human rights in Cambodia continues to be prioritized despite the pandemic. He says that through the humanitarian spirit of the government, Cambodia has provided COVID-19 vaccines for free to both locals and foreigners. He says families whose livelihoods have been affected by restrictions have been provided with cash support. With regards to freedom of opinion and expression, Mr. Sokun says Cambodia values journalists, but not those spreading what he called fake news. He says this is why government prioritized the vaccination of journalists before members of the general public. Among other progress highlighted by the head of Cambodia's permanent mission were efforts to end violence against women and children, the improvement of mental health services, and the right to housing. Rhea Soko, EAC News.
Well, let's take a look now at news making international headlines this Friday, the 16th of July. A swift-spreading wildfire is raging through south-central Oregon for a 9th day. 2,000 homes are threatened and hundreds of people are being forced to evacuate. The so-called bootleg fire has already burnt its way through almost 86,000 hectares, razing 21 homes and 54 other buildings. Elsewhere in Oregon, firefighters dropped retardant from the air as the Grandview fire tore through Deschutes and Jefferson counties. These are just 2 of 60 large fires that have torched over 400,000 hectares across 12 US states this fire season. Aerial footage in the Netherlands shows the full extent of flooding in Europe. Dozens of homes are underwater in the Netherlands alone. 42 people have been killed in Germany, where hundreds of troops have been called in to assist. Across the border in Belgium, 2 men have been swept away after torrential rain. A 15-year-old girl is missing. Record rainfall in Western Europe has caused rivers to burst their banks. The region's famous vineyards have all been flooded. And call him the luckiest guy on the planet. 18-year-old physics student Oliver Damon is to fly into space with the world's richest man, Jeff Bezos. He secured the seat in place of someone who bid $28 million in an auction. Bezos will lead an all-civilian crew in Tuesday's flight. Apart from Damon, who will be the world's youngest person to go into orbit, it'll also carry the world's oldest, 82-year-old Wally Funk. Blue Origin will rocket into space atop Bezos's New Shepard rocket. New Shepard is just over 18 meters tall and is fully autonomous, meaning it doesn't need a pilot. The launch is set for West Texas sometime on Tuesday night, Cambodian time. EAC News fully supports the Royal Government of Cambodia's preventative and administrative measures against COVID-19. But we need you to play your part in helping bring the 20 February community transmission event to an end. Wash your hands regularly. Sanitize wherever possible. Keep an eye on your body temperature. Use the Stop COVID QR code. And maintain a safe social distance. But above all, please, 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 wear a mask. Only together can we beat COVID-19. EARTS Cambodia's audience is growing. Our YouTube channel now has 150,000 verified subscribers. To mark the milestone, we've received the Silver Creator Award from YouTube, given to channels with over 100,000 subscribers. YouTube CEO Susan Wojcicki says the award celebrates EARTS Cambodia's hard work and incredible achievement. She says not only has EARTS Cambodia brought a unique voice and style to the world, but has also created valuable connections and built a community along the way. The next milestone we're going for is 1 million subscribers, and we'd really like that Gold Creator Award. So if you're not already a subscriber, head to www.youtube.com/EARTS Cambodia. Subscribers get all the latest breaking news and updates from Cambodia in English. We'll see you there. If it's happening and you need to know about it, you'll get it all right here. EAC News brings you updates and breaking news in English across all of EARTS Cambodia's platforms and channels. YouTube, Facebook, Telegram, Twitter, and our website, www.eartscambodia.com. Join me, Andrew Barnes-Roberts, and the rest of the EAC News team every day on your favorite channels. EAC News, Cambodia made clear.
Italy wrecked England's Euro 2020 party at Wembley on Sunday night, winning the final on penalties to plunge the host nation into despair. The Three Lions were immediately ahead in the final, with Luke Shaw scoring the quickest goal ever in a European Championship final, just 2 minutes into the match. But Roberto Mancini's men recovered from the shock to claim a 3-2 shootout victory. The atmosphere in the stadium, packed with 67,000 fans, was feverish in the build-up to the match, which kicked off at 2 a.m. Cambodian time on Monday. It was 1-1 after extra time, which brought on the feared penalty shootout. Italy goalkeeper Gianluigi Donnarumma saved 2 England penalties to take the Azzurri to their 3-2. British billionaire Mr. Richard Branson has become the world's first person to ride into space aboard a spaceship his own company built. Virgin Galactic 1 roared into a low-roar orbit above New Mexico on Sunday night, carrying Branson and 3 fellow passengers. As the British billionaire floated around in microgravity, he sent a taped message. "To all you kids out there, I was once a child with a dream, looking up at the stars. Now I'm an adult in a spaceship. If we can do this, just imagine what you can do." Branson's flight came just 9 days before Amazon billionaire Jeff Bezos heads into orbit aboard his own company's spacecraft. These are landmark moments for commercial space travel and have received praise and congratulations on Twitter from Elon Musk. Virgin Galactic plans to conduct just one more test flight before it begins flying paying customers. More than 600 people have already bought tickets. If you want one, you're going to have to dig very deep into your pockets. The first tickets were sold for between $200,000 and $250,000. The next batch of tickets are expected to be even more. Cambodian mixed martial arts champion Chan Ratana isn't the type to back down from a challenge. Indonesia's Iko Roni Saputra has recently called him out for a future matchup. Ratana says he'd love nothing more than to finish off another rising star from Indonesia. Chan Ratana has become the guy to beat for Indonesian fighters. Back in December 2018, during an event by One Championship, the Cambodian Kung Khmer specialist squared off against then undefeated the Black Komodo Abro Fernandez. After weathering an early storm, Ratana crumpled his foe with a knee and rained down punches to earn a second-round technical knockout victory. The Phnom Penh native repeated the trick in May 2019 as he picked apart Rudy, the Golden Boy Augustian, to score another TKO. Now, the 35-year-old says that he's happy to meet Iko Roni. "I think he wants to gain redemption for his compatriots," he says, "but I know I can beat Iko. I'm just not sure whether it would be by points or knockout. However, I don't think it would last 3 rounds. Ratana is currently training hard despite the pandemic with his team Selapak and his trainer Lorenzo. Some good news for Cambodian sports fans. According to the Cambodia Gymnastics Federation, 2 Cambodian gymnasts took second place in the 6th Korean Open aerobic competition at the weekend. The young Cambodian gymnasts are Han Sokor and Mo Saripov, taking second place on the podium in their age group. South Korea and Japan filled up the podium, ending 1st and 3rd respectively. 31 countries and more than 500 athletes participated at the international gymnastics event, with the finals being staged virtually at Seoul last Saturday and Sunday. The teams had to submit videos of their performances before the 20th of June for the judges to score them. Let's just hope it's not too long before athletes can get back to performing in front of actual crowds. Sadly, that won't be at the 2020 Tokyo Olympics, with all spectators still banned from the Games, which get underway on Friday, the 23rd of July. A young Cambodian woman is busy climbing the world's rankings in billiards. Surong Pivi has joined one of the biggest tournaments in the world and is already top of the table. Pivi recently joined the Professional Billiards Association that organizes the most prestigious international tournaments in South Korea. The competition started on the 6th of July and will end on the 31st. The 31-year-old is already on top with a total score of 20,000 points to date, which converts to a cash prize already of almost $18,000. Players from around the world are competing for the grand prize of $100,000. Pivi hails from Tbong Khmum and is known as Cambodia's billiards beauty. She married a Korean a few years ago and emigrated to South Korea, where she started playing billiards professionally. She believes there's a bright future for enthusiasts in the kingdom. Her next goal is to build a sports school in Cambodia where she can teach and inspire the youth to play more sport and be as skilled as those in other countries. The Olympic Games gets underway next Friday and the Cambodian team is off to Tokyo. There is great enthusiasm around the world to celebrate the Games. After they were postponed last year, but COVID-19 still raging, there will be no spectators to cheer our athletes on. Cambodia's medal hopes rest on the shoulders of 2 young swimmers and 1 talented runner. Cambodia's 3 elite athletes will take part in the opening ceremony next Friday, and they are due to fly out to Tokyo early next week. Secretary-General of the National Olympic Committee, Mr. Bat Chamran, says the trio are swimmers 22-year-old Hem Puk, 17-year-old Kum Bumpik Morakad, and 28-year-old runner Peng Sokong. The 2 swimmers will compete in the 50-meter freestyle. Sokong will compete in the 100-meter sprint. Sokong holds a personal best of 10.87 seconds and says this will be his first Olympics, and he's hoping to set a new record for himself. In Japan, the International Olympic Committee's president, Thomas Bach, has called Tokyo the best ever prepared city to host the Olympics, but there have already been financial drawbacks. This year's delay has cost Japan billions of dollars. The decision to hold the Games behind closed doors is also leaving Tokyo taxpayers on the hook to refund up to $800 million in ticket sales.
Thank you for watching the weekly roundup here on the EART's Cambodia channel. More from the EAC news team on Monday night at 8 in the Daily Roundup. We'll see you then.